Welcome students. This is the second part of my video on working of institution. So in the first part we have discussed about what is institution. So institution is the arrangement made to run the government, okay? And we have in the democratic country we have three types of institution that are number 1 executive, number 2 legislative, and number 3 judiciary. So in the previous video we have already discussed about the legislative, that is the parliament, and in this video we will be discussing about the special power of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, and also about the executive, that is the second pillar or the second institution of the democratic government. So let's get started. Special power of Lok Sabha over Rajya Sabha. So our constitution gives some special power to Rajya Sabha, but on most of the matters the Lok Sabha exercises supreme power. So both the constitution gives power to both Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha, but in some cases the Lok Sabha exercises supreme power. So what are those cases? We will be studying now. Okay, so these are: an ordinary law needs to be passed by both the houses, but if there is difference between the two houses, the final decision is taken in the joint session. So when ordinary law needs to be passed, okay, when any law needs to be passed, that ordinary law, when that law needs to be passed, that time what happened, it should be passed by both the houses. But if there is difference arises in those two houses, that is in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, in that cases what happens, the final decision is taken in the joint session. Then there will be a joint session, and in that joint session Lok Sabha likely to prevail because of its large number of members. So the Lok Sabha had large number of members than the Rajya Sabha. That's why at last the Lok Sabha decision will prevail in that joint session. Okay. Next is Lok Sabha exercises more power in money matters. So in money matter also Lok Sabha exercises more power. Well, regarding the passing of money bill, okay, in that cases what happens, Lok Sabha exercises more power. Once the Lok Sabha passes the budget of the government or any other money related law or money bill, the Rajya Sabha cannot reject it. So only the Lok Sabha has the sole power to pass the money related bills. Okay, that time the Rajya Sabha cannot reject that bill. Okay, the Rajya Sabha can only delay money bill by 14 days or suggest to change it, but the Lok Sabha may or may not accept these changes. So the one special power that Lok Sabha have while introducing the money bill in the parliament is that when Lok Sabha member of Lok Sabha introduces the money bill in the parliament, that time the Rajya Sabha, they ask some they ask Rajya Sabha to check the bill, okay, and they ask some suggestion to the members of Rajya Sabha, but the Rajya Sabha can keep that bill only for the 14 days, and they only can suggest changes in that bill, but they cannot reject the money bill. Okay, they can suggest some changes in the money bill, okay, and the Lok Sabha may or may not accept those changes. Okay, it's in the hands of Lok Sabha to accept that changes given by Rajya Sabha, accept that suggestion given by Rajya Sabha or not. Okay, this is another special power that Lok Sabha have, but Rajya Sabha cannot reject that bill. Rajya Sabha have to pass that bill to Lok Sabha after 14 days, okay, with or without any changes, or Lok Sabha may or may not accept that changes also. It's with Lok Sabha to take the suggestion or not. Okay, so next important power is Lok Sabha controls the Council of Ministers. So Lok Sabha also controls the Council of Ministers, and only the person who enjoys the support of the majority members in the Lok Sabha is appointed as the Prime Minister. So the, those member who enjoys the support of the majority of members in the Lok Sabha is appointed as the Prime Minister. So if anyone have to be, if anyone wants to become the Prime Minister, then he or she should enjoy the majority of the vote from the Lok Sabha. Okay, so he or she have to enjoy the support of the majority of members in the Lok Sabha to be appointed as the Prime Minister. Okay, so if the majority of Lok Sabha members says that they have no confidence in the Council of Ministers, all ministers include the Prime Minister have to quit. So if the Lok Sabha members of Lok Sabha says that they have no confidence, then all the Council of Ministers including the Prime Minister have to quit. Okay, but the Rajya Sabha does not have this power. Okay, so this Lok Sabha have special power. Why? Because they are appointed directly by the people. Okay, so now we move on to executive, that is the second pillar of democratic form of government. So executive, the functionary who take day-to-day decision but do not exercise supreme power on behalf of people are known as executive. So these executives are the functionaries that take day-to-day decision but they do not exercise supreme power on the behalf of people. Okay, and they are called executive because they are in charge of execution of policies of government. So whatever the decision that has been passed in the parliament, okay, or whatever the rules and regulation, whatever the law that has been passed by the member of parliament, okay, so all those laws or all those rules and regulation will be executed by the executives. Okay, that's why they are called executives. So they are called executive because they are in charge of execution of policies of the government. Okay, so there are two type of executive, that is political executive and permanent executive. So political executives are elected by the people for specific period. Okay, they take major decision and political leaders fall in this category. So all the political leaders who are elected for the specific period falls on this category. Okay, so next is permanent executive. So they are appointed on the long term basis and they are also known as civil servants. So all the civil servants comes under this category in the permanent executive, and they remain office even when the ruling party changes. So even when the ruling party changes, like now we have the ruling party we have is BJP, okay, in our country. So if the BJP after 5 years it changes, and if the Congress party comes into power, that time also these civil servants will will remain in the office. Okay, so they are permanent executive. So those civil servants are known as permanent executive. So those civil servants who works in the government offices, okay, bureaucrats and all the people who works in government offices for public service. Okay, they work under political executive and assist them for carrying out daily administration. So they work under political executive and assist them for carrying out daily administration. So they have to work under the political executive and they also assist them for carrying out daily administrative of the country. Okay, so next we have is the power of permanent and political executive. So what are the powers that the permanent executive and the political executive have. Okay, so the political executive has more power than the permanent executive. This is because the political executive is elected by the people, and in a democracy, will of the people is supreme. So as these political executives are elected by the people, that's why they have a, more power. Okay, so they are answerable to the people for all consequences of their decision. So if they should be answerable to the people for all the consequences of their decision. Okay, permanent executive are more educated and have exercised and expertised on the subject of ministry. Okay, so they are expert and they are more educated compared to the political executive. Permanent executives are more educated. Okay, for instance, advisor of the finance minister known more about economics than the finance minister. So the advisor the advisor of the finance minister knows more about economy than the finance minister, but still decision of the finance minister will be the final, because political executive can take advice of the permanent executive. So political executive can take advice from the permanent executive, and then they decide overall framework and objectives of the policy to be implemented. So political executive can take some suggestion, some advice from the permanent executive, and they will see the overall matter, and ultimately they implement those matters or the subject in the favor of the people. Okay, so this is how the powers of permanent and the political executives differs. Okay, as the political executive has more power than the permanent executive, but this permanent executive are more educated people, and most of the advices they provide to the political executive. Okay, so in executives there are three peoples that they are prime minister, president, and council of minister. Now we will learn about the prime minister. So prime minister is the head of the government and actually exercises all the government powers. So prime minister is the head of the government and he exercises all the government powers. Like we have Narendra Modi as our prime minister. So the president appoints the leader of majority party or the coalition of the parties that commands a majority in Lok Sabha as the prime minister. So those who wins the election in the Lok Sabha, those who commands a majority in the Lok Sabha will be appointed as the prime minister. Okay, in case no single party gets a majority, the president appoints the person most likely to secure a majority support. So but sometimes what happens in the election, if in case no single party, if there is no party gets a majority, that time the president appoints the person most likely to secure a majority. So in that case what happens, the president will appoint such a person who is fit to become a prime minister. Okay, so the prime minister does not have a fixed tenure. So he does not have a fixed tenure. He continues in power as long as he remains the leader of majority or the coalition party. So the prime minister does not have a fixed tenure. Okay, and he continues to remain in the power as long as he is the leader of majority party. That means as long as he remains as a majority party, till that time he can become a prime minister. Okay, actually the tenure of the prime minister is 5 years, and after 5 years again there will be an election, and in that election again if the prime minister if the prime minister wins, then again the same person can remain as a prime minister for the second time also. Okay, so this is how it goes. And now we move on to the powers of the prime minister. So what are the powers the prime minister have? Okay, so now the powers of prime minister. The prime minister has a wide ranging powers, as he is the head of the country, head of the government. Okay, so he has a wide ranging power. So these are the number one, the prime minister is free to choose ministers. So he can choose ministers as long as they are member of parliament. So now he can choose the other ministers, okay, as long as they are member of parliament. Okay, so number two is he chairs and takes most of the decision in the cabinet meeting. So he chairs and takes most of the decision in the cabinet meeting. Okay, number three, he coordinates the work of different departments, and his decisions are final in case disagreements between departments. So he coordinates the work of different departments, and if and his decision during that time, and his decision will be final decision. Okay, if someone agrees or not, his decision will be the final decision. Whatever decision he will make, everyone have to follow. Okay, so next is he exercises general supervision of different ministers, and also ministers, and all ministers work under his leadership. So he exercises general, so he supervises all the ministers, and and all ministers work under his leadership, and all the ministers uh, have to work under his leadership. Okay, he distributes and redistributes work to the ministers. So he also gives works to the ministers. Okay, he also has the power to dismiss ministers. So he also has the power to dismiss other minister. When the prime minister quits, the entire minister quits. So when the prime minister quits, the entire council of ministers have to quit. Okay, so these all are the power of prime minister. So now we have to move on the council of ministers. So okay, so the council of ministers, it is the official name for the body that includes all the ministers. So it is the official name of the body, so it is the body that includes all the minister. It usually has 60 to 80 ministers of different ranks. So it consists of 60 to 80 ministers of different ranks, and the council of ministers have collective responsibility. Okay, the council of ministers comprise the cabinet ministers. Okay, are usually top level leaders of ruling party or the parties who are in charge of major minister. Okay, cabinet is the inner ring of council of ministers. So council of minister consists first of cabinet minister. It consists of cabinet minister, and this cabinet minister are the top level leaders who are chosen by the prime minister. Okay, so it consists of 20 ministers. Okay, number two is the ministers of the state will with independent charges are usually in charge of smaller ministers. So next in the cabinet minister, in the council of minister, we have cabinet minister, and then we have minister of state with independent charge or usually in charge of smaller minister. Okay, and they participate in the cabinet meetings only with special invitation. So if they are invited, then only they can participate. Okay, so like the ministers of states, okay, with the independent charges, so all those ministers can only participate in the cabinet meeting, okay, when they are invited. Okay, number three is ministers of state are attached to and required to assist cabinet ministers. So ministers of states are there in the council of minister to assist the cabinet minister. So this council of minister consists of cabinet ministers first, and the minister of state. Okay, and this minister of states are there to assist the cabinet ministers, and sometimes there will be a minister of state with independent charges in the meeting when they are invited. Okay, so these all are about the council of ministers. Okay, so now we will learn how the council of ministers are appointed. Okay, so after the appointment of prime minister, the president appoints the council of ministers. So after the prime minister is appointed, then after that the president appoints the council of ministers on the advice of prime minister. Then what happens actually is that the prime minister will advise the president to appoint this minister, then the president will appoint the minister according to the advice of the prime minister. Okay, they are usually from the party or the coalition that has majority in Lok Sabha. So those ministers are appointed that has the majority in Lok Sabha. Okay, sometimes the person who is not the member of parliament can also be appointed as the minister, but that such a person has to get elected to one of the house of the parliament within 6 months or his office appointment. Okay, so this is how the council of ministers are appointed. So next is the president. The president is the head of the state. Okay, so as prime minister is the head of the government, same way the president is the head of a state. Head of the state here is country, so he is the head of a country. Okay, so in our political system, the head of the state exercises only nominal power. Thus a president is like the Queen of Britain, whose functions are to a large extent ceremonial. He is the head of this country. He is the head of a country, but he exercises only a nominal power. Okay, and thus the president is like a Queen of Britain, whose functions are to a large extent just a ceremonial. And he exercises only the nominal power. Okay, so how the president is appointed? Okay, so the president of India is elected indirectly. So he has nominal power because he is elected indirectly by an electoral college. So he is indirectly he is elected indirectly by an electoral college in accordance with the system of proportional representation by the means of single transferable vote. Okay, so this president is elected indirectly. Okay, that's why he has a nominal power and he is elected indirectly by an electoral college. Okay, so what is electoral college? So electoral college consists of the elected members of both the house of the parliament. Okay, the electoral college consists of both the house of the parliament. Okay, that is Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. And number 2, the elected members of legislative assembly of states. So it also consists of elected members of legislative assemblies of state. Okay, so MLAs. Okay, and number 3, the elected members of legislative assemblies of union territories of Delhi and Pondicherry. So electoral college consists of all the members of house of the parliament, that is Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, and the elected members of legislative assembly of states, that is Vidhan Sabha and Vidhan Parishad. So MLAs are also included. Okay, and the elected members of legislative assembly of union territories of Delhi and Pondicherry. So all these are the people who votes, who chooses the president of our country. Okay, a candidate standing for the president post had to get a majority of vote to win the election. So if he wants to become the president, then he has to win the majority of votes in the election. Okay, this ensures that the president can be seen to represent the entire nation. The president can never come the kind of direct popular mandate and the prime minister can. Okay, so if he wants to become the prime minister, then if he want to become a president, so that time he had to win the election with the majority of votes, then only he will be elected as the president. Okay, so this is how the president is appointed. Okay, so now we come to the powers of president. So what are the powers the president have? Okay, president enjoys the following powers. Number one, the governmental activities take place in the name of president. So all the governmental activities takes place in the name of president. Okay, all laws and the majority policies decision of all the governments are issued in her or his name. So all laws that has to be passed and the policy decisions of the government are issued in his or her name. Okay, so number two is all major appointments are made in the name of president. So all the appointments are made in the name of president. Okay, this include the appointment of Chief Justice of India. So while appointing the Chief Justice of India, the judges of Supreme Court, the High Court of the states, okay, and the governors of states, the election commission, the ambassadors to other countries, etc., all are appointed in the name of president. Okay, so the president plays a major role in appointing all those Chief Justice of India, Judge of Supreme Court and High Courts of the states, Governor, Election Commission and Ambassador to the other countries. So he plays a major role while appointing all those people. Okay. Number three is all international treaties and agreements are made in the name of president. So all international treaties and agreements are made in the name of president. Okay, the president is the supreme commander of defense force of India. So he is the supreme commander of defense force of India. So all the decision that has to be made in the matter related to defense force, then he plays a major role. Okay, he has emergency power, that is the power to deal with the unexpected and critical situation. So in case if there is any harsh situation arises in any of the state in our country, that time if the government cannot or could not handle that situation, that time there will be a presidential role and issuing an ordinance. Okay, so now we move on to the limitation on the power of president. So how the power of the presidents are limited. Okay, in spite of this power, there is a limitation on the power of president. He can exercise all these powers only on the advice of Council of Ministers. So he can exercise all those power that I have discussed just now. He can exercise all these power only on the advice of Council of Ministers, and those Council of Ministers are chosen by the Prime Minister. Okay, and the President can ask the Council of Ministers to reconsider its advice, but if the same advice is given again, the President is bound to act according to it. And similarly, a bill passed by the Parliament becomes a law only after the President gives assent to it. Okay, so whichever bill is passed in the Parliament except money bill, okay, or I can say money bill also, because in the Parliament whatever the bill passed, okay, becomes a law. That will become a law only after the President gives a assent to it. Okay, that means if the President signs on that law paper, then only that bill or the paper will become a law. Okay, so this is all about the power of president and the limitation of power of president. Okay, so students, this is second part of my video on working of institution. So I will come up with the next video that will be a third part in this chapter, third part of video in this chapter. So till then, stay home, stay safe, and have a nice day.